Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. We're here today to talk Captain America Brave New World. Once Steven called Captain America New World Order,
Oh,
but they ditched the WCW heel turn theme from the 90s and decided to go with Brave New World. This, first of all, welcome. Your first movie review of the year
yeah.
with us. So thanks for taking the time today. Thank you for watching. Real quick, like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. And if you'd like to support us, head to patreon.com/strangelyawesome. And our website is strangelyawesome.games.com. Okay. Captain America, Brave New World. It's like a reboot in a way, Steven, because we're now officially on the road to the next Avengers movie.
Yes.
And this was very much used to set that up.
Absolutely. Like it's not even hinted at. It is directly stated in the movie. The Avengers need to come back.
This is a movie that was plagued by a lot of focus group feedback that wasn't very good, leading to a lot of reshoots and a lot of other stuff. We've seen some people talk about some of the effects in the movie. I wonder if some of that is maybe because of that. It being a little rushed, although I didn't really notice anything.
Yeah, I didn't either. It wasn't like a I saw Quantumania after, so they had fixed it by then, and I didn't think it was that bad when I watched. So I have no idea like what that was like in theaters.
Sure.
But this was not noticeable with bad CGI.
I also don't know if you saw the stories, but word is Harrison Ford was an absolute like terror to work with on this set.
Interesting.
Yeah, he was, according to some of the crew, very difficult, and made it one of the least like well-run Marvel shoots they've ever been on.
Well, that's not fun.
No, and it's unfortunate, but I can see like Harrison Ford because he's kind of a curmudgeon anyway, and coming into this thing and finding out he's got to turn into a Red Hulk, and then he's like, "What the hell is a Hulk?" And it's just goes from there, and he's like, "This is all stupid," and he's just doing it for the shits and giggles at this point.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Probably for his family. Like I'm in the Marvel movie. Also maybe for his legacy. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't know that he was Red Hulk until my wife spoiled it for me like 2 days before we went to the movies. And I never because I just didn't see that trailer. And I tend to like once I know I'm going to a movie, I try to avoid the trailers if I can.
Sure.
And so I was like a little annoyed with her for it. Also a little annoyed with why would they show that in the trailer? I feel that's the thing that bugs me.
It's to get people to the movie. Honestly,
you could have
to build hype.
I feel like they actually set up the like pieces of that through the movie like pretty well, like hinting. And if they would have not said it, I think like it was more obvious than not. But I think if you didn't show it, like you could have made the audience feel kind of smart for figuring it out. And why would you take that away? Like I hate trailers, man, but that's the story.
Well, with the theater industry as it is today, with ticket sales down pretty much across the board, with some rare exceptions, they're going to show all the cool shit in the trailers now to get people out.
Especially because Marvel has no like good vibes left or whatever. Goodwill.
Not a lot of goodwill remaining. No, and really this year. Captain America is a big franchise, and that was the right movie to kick off with, because it's a known quantity, even though it is Sam Wilson now instead of Steve Rogers in the lead role. But Thunderbolts is a bit of a question mark, right? I'm excited for it. You are too, but it's a bit of an unknown. And then Fantastic Four, we all have hope. America's Daddy, is in it, so we're excited. But who knows? Fantastic Four hasn't had a great track record of being successful on the big screen, so we'll see. So it's even this year with 3 movies on the way, a little up in the air. Did you like this movie, just in general?
Yeah, I would say what came out of it feeling like I enjoyed it more than I didn't.
Yeah, I'm with you there. We give scores early on in our reviews, so I guess before we jump into spoiler territory, so we'll do that now. we're at a 6 with this. I think we could get pushed to 6.5, like if we had to, but I feel like 6 is the right place to be here. This is a really good Phase 5 Marvel movie. It would be a really poor Phase 1 or 2 Marvel movie.
But it felt like a Phase 1 or 2
It's trying to be a Phase 1 or 2.
I would put it like it feels like a lot like a Phase 2, where the characters are established a little bit. It's solidly in that Phase 2 realm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good. I know Marvel would not be super thrilled hearing 6.5. Because you know they want like 8s or 9s at this point, but it's hard. They've not found their footing since Endgame.
The other thing I don't like here is I hate when the MCU makes you do homework. It was one of my favorite things about Deadpool and Wolverine. It required zero homework whatsoever to enjoy that movie.
Yeah, this one almost feels like you have to have watched The Incredible Hulk recently.
You have to have seen Incredible Hulk. You have to have seen Eternals. That helps. And then you need to have seen Falcon and Winter Soldier, really, to understand kind of where Sam Wilson is at this point.
Yeah, I actually, I don't know if I fully agree with having seen Falcon and Winter Soldier, because at the end of Endgame, the shield gets passed off. Like,
yeah, I mean, you can without it.
Yeah.
But to understand his, like, internal dilemma in this film.
Yeah. And the whole, like, Bucky and him interaction, like, maybe a spoiler, sorry.
It is a spoiler, but that's okay. Whatever. You're with us this long, so it's fine. He does make a cameo. Took some time away from playing the Donald for a couple of seconds to come film this scene. And it's a good scene. It fits. But yeah, so we gave this a 6. It's enjoyable. It's going to be necessary watching to head into the next Avengers film. So
yeah,
if you want to get reinvested in the MCU, or you never stop being invested, you're going to want to see this. So, okay, Steven, spoiler time, themes, a lot going on here. I felt like, first of all, we had this is really about 2 characters. You have Sam Wilson, Captain America, and you have Thaddeus Ross, now played by Harrison Ford, after William Hurt passed away. But you have 2 characters that are kind of in new situations and taking on new roles and kind of becoming used to those things. Ross now the president of the United States, and Wilson now as Captain America. And they kind of approach this in different ways. Ross, his character, is trying for redemption and to prove that he's not who he used to be. But we see that return to that grasp for power and that wielding power throughout the film. The cost for his, like, refusal to let that go is shown by the relationship with his daughter, or lack thereof, played by Liv Tyler, who, spoilers, shows up at the very, very end of this.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's like his end. Sam Wilson is struggling with, am I really worthy of this shield? Throughout the movie, it's referenced a few times that he didn't take the serum, right? He's just a soldier. Pretty good one. Still badass. But he doesn't have the powers that Steve Rogers had. Of that, like, which one of the 2 arcs was more interesting to you?
I think the Thaddeus Ross one was explored a little bit more, which is weird for it being a Captain America movie. I guess I would say I was more intrigued by the Cap side, but I wanted it explored a little more. There was a line in the movie where it's like, Steve Rogers was, I think, like an ideal, but you're someone to aspire to. And at first, I don't know if I fully agreed with that, because I feel like Steve was kind of what a lot of people aspired to. But the more I think about it, the more I understand it, from the sense of, he's not a super soldier. Like Anthony Mackie or Sam Wilson is not, like you said, not the super soldier. He didn't take the serum. And that's a little bit easier to see yourself as when you're looking at a guy as he's the ideal, like he's an ideal, and it feels attainable for everybody. Like,
That's
I mean,
the
yeah,
thing,
he
right?
has,
He didn't get a shot and go into a
yeah,
little chamber or whatever. He's just like anybody else, right? Anybody could theoretically achieve that.
yes.
So,
So I find that to be interesting. I'd say a little more interesting. What about you?
yeah, I mean, the Ross one was also a bit of a fake out because they try to set you up thinking that like he's the orchestrator of this whole like plot. Um, he wasn't, although he's very much the cause of it in an indirect way. Um, there are like a bunch of villains throughout this. Like Ross is a little bit of a villain from the standpoint of like the actions of his past are coming back to get him now.
Yeah.
And then you have the leader, who isn't referred to as the leader in the movie, but instead, and I have to look at notes here, apologies, is referred to, or not referred to, but his name. He's in the Incredible Hulk. So where are you?
Oh my god, I just had it too.
I know.
Shoot. Samuel Stearns.
There we are. Thank you. I'm looking
Stearns.
at the article I wrote right now just because the name escaped me. But yeah, Samuel Stearns was in. He was like Dr. Blue, right, in the Incredible Hulk, and it's weird. First of all, not to go a little off track here, but this is basically a sequel to a 15-year-old movie.
Yeah, it is almost a direct sequel.
Yeah, it's got a little like it helps if you've seen Eternals because you'll know what the hell's going on in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah,
and like I said, it helps if you've seen Falcon Winter Soldier, just so you know kind of what's going on in Sam Wilson's head throughout this movie. But yeah, and then so you have all of that going on with the leader, and then you also have Giancarlo Esposito's
Serpent and Sidewinder.
Sidewinder. Yep,
he's Sidewinder.
So
yeah,
he's Sidewinder.
The group.
So Sidewinder is also a villain in this, and Sidewinder, by the way, was shoehorned into the script after test groups did not like the movie that much. So he was just kind of inserted.
That's why he's very, very a small part.
And it seems like it doesn't really fit that well, right? Like he's there in the beginning ish, and then
he's almost a
like end of second act ish,
ex machina sort of thing, where he's just there to advance the plot.
Yep.
I mean, he's interesting, and I think he'll show up later. I feel like they had an idea for him already, and they're like, well, let's just get him in here, make it interesting, and then he can show up in either a later movie or what I imagine actually more of a series. I could see him being in a series.
I could too, and if Giancarlo Esposito would go for that, I'd be down, but I don't know. So you have all that going on, and I think part of it is because audiences probably didn't really buy into the fact that your baddies in this movie are one like a political baddie who is really just paying for his crimes of the past, and a guy who has like mind control, but isn't like physically imposing or threatening or actually kicking the shit out of anybody.
Yeah.
So I think they brought in Sidewinder to kind of take on that piece of it and give Sam Wilson somebody to actually fight before Red Hulk shows up, which is only about 5 minutes of the movie. So you have those two arcs going on that, like I said, the baddies are sort of spread out, but the mind control piece. So I might be reading too much into this, but movies are always, and MCU hasn't shied away in the past of being commentary on our current world. So when I look at and I see like mind control and using words or images or something to trigger people into like acts that they might not normally do or acts of violence, I see parallels to today, how people get like just almost programmed to think like certain things are evil, and then a word will trigger it, like woke, for example, and all of a sudden people are pissed, and I wonder if there's a little bit of that being talked about here. I think there's one other very, very, very overt statement on our current day in the third act And I guess let's just get to that. So my biggest theme of this movie is power and how you handle it.
Yeah.
Ross craves power. Wilson refuses it. And Wilson accepts responsibility without wanting power, whereas Ross wants power without responsibility. And that to me is the dynamic of this movie. Now, whenever he's pushed, Ross starts to have the monster come out, which is the Hulk, right? And finally, it happens. And then we get this shot of allowing a monster to be unleashed standing on the roof of the White House. Showing that some people crave power at any cost, even the destruction, literal destruction of democratic institutions, because the White House was just like blown through. I thought that was a very, if not over the top, poignant shot. And it's hard to escape the symbolism that's being shown there. What do you think about that whole sequence?
Yeah, that's a good point. Starting from when he's sitting behind the like basically presidential like pulpit or whatever it's called.
The lectern type thing?
Yeah, the lectern. Yeah. And then he knocks it out of the way and then starts to destroy the White House and kind of the rest of parts of Washington, D.C. Yeah, I totally see how that is the commentary. There were times where I was like thinking about our current state and wondering how the hell this happened. But yeah, I do think it's probably on purpose. And I think
things like that rarely aren't. You know,
what? Yeah,
things like that are rarely not on purpose.
Yeah, and I think that's even more like evidence for why we don't need a super soldier to quote fight back. As we talked about, like Sam Wilson isn't a super soldier. He's a good soldier, but he's not super. He's almost kind of like Tony Stark in a way where it's kind of the suit that's protecting him. And
but
yeah,
it's his character that carries him.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I think, the overall message here. Like, this movie tried to tell Steven a story that I think a little known and lesser seen movie from 2024 called Small Things Like These told much better. And it's that you don't need huge acts to make a difference and resist things that are happening. It's just small acts, small things, helping one person can make all the difference. And I think that's where Sam Wilson is coming to terms with who he is as Captain America. He's not going to be the guy that's like doing all the Steve Rogers things necessarily.
Yeah.
But he can still carry the shield and be worthy of it.
I do think being a Marvel movie, we already see that people are terrible at getting messages from movies. Yeah. I mean, even like Wicked, which isn't that much. Like the story isn't. Yeah, it's not subtle, and they're still missing it, and they're gonna miss this too.
They'll get what they want to get from
it.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. Like the themes were okay. I think they're good themes to talk about, especially now.
Ultimately, though, a Marvel movie is really as good as its action. That's why these movies gross $500 million plus, you know?
Yeah.
It's not for the statements on American society. So what'd you think of the action sequences?
It was fine. They were they had their set pieces. Obviously the opening, got to start there. I couldn't help. Like, we needed to talk about it. This movie was the Winter Soldier, like almost shot for shot in a way. It was like, felt like it was trying to be that again. And like Winter Soldier is the best movie we've ever made. So let's try to do that again to get people back.
It's certainly the best Captain America movie they've ever done. So yeah. And arguably MCU. So
Yeah. So the opening sequence is like the container fight, except now they're in a chapel.
Yep.
That's right. And then you have like the bit in the middle, where like things are going to hell and like the bad guys are, or the good guys are turning on them with the start of the mind control, and then you have like a couple big scenes at the end.
And like Shield in that movie is replaced with the president here, and
yeah, including even the mind control with the whole like secret. Well, that was in Civil War, but still, like some of the words, or in this case, a song that sets people off. I don't know, I just have to bring it up.
Yeah, and I think that's totally fair.
The action was fine, like to good. I thought the fights were fun-ish. I like the opening fight was fun, and then the closing fight was good. So the bookend fights were good, and the bit inside of the like presidential, when he was doing the brief, or like not the brief, but the presentation,
like the ceremony thing with the glass coming down and stuff. Yeah,
I thought that part was cool too. So the action was fine. It's not Avengers level, but I don't want that necessarily from a singular. And I actually want a little more story, so I was fine with it.
Me too. And I think you needed more story because this was essentially a restart, you know. So you got to set the tone a little bit. I quite enjoyed the Indian Ocean bit too.
Yes.
And I bet that's where some of the people saying the effects weren't that great are gonna like point to. But I didn't mind. Like, it was fine. It was good. I enjoyed the action sequences. It made sense. It did a lot actually to, show us what Ross was dealing with at that point, and Wilson's kind of struggle against that, and all of that like was told through an action sequence fairly well. So I was good with that. And then the final two, like between Red Hulk and Cap, and the cherry blossoms, dude. Yeah. Think back to when we walked in the cherry blossoms, but it was a poignant moment because that's where Ross finally takes responsibility for his actions. And he did a little bit earlier too, like right before he went out to make the speech where he turns into the Red Hulk. Like, he shows some remorse there too, and that's where we see his daughter pick up the phone for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So when he starts to actually take some responsibility, she comes back into his life, and then he fully takes responsibility, and then she physically comes back into his life at the end. So that's kind of where we were there. Yeah, so there's some definite themes going on here. I think overall performances, I mean, there's really like two performances, Steven, that matter in this movie. Like,
yeah,
that carry the story. Although the sidekick, who was
Danny or Joaquin Torres.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I was like, they made Sam Wilson more serious instead of being the like quippy sidekick, and so they just gave a quippy sidekick to him.
A more quippy sidekick, a Gen Z quippy sidekick.
Yeah, and I liked Joaquin Torres, or Danny Ramirez's performance as Joaquin Torres.
Me too.
I just couldn't help but see like all of these parallels to some of the old MCU projects. And that's fine. But I don't know. That's the part I just wanted a little bit more. And maybe I'm looking in the wrong. It's hard to, Tyler, because we were talking and off air. We have watched a lot of the Best Picture movies over the last 2 months to like cover that stuff. Mm-hmm. And so now when you go back to a MCU movie, which is definitely a popcorn flick, like enjoyable, turn your brain off a little bit. Sometimes it's hard to turn your brain off and enjoy the movie for what it is.
It's hard to get back into that mode.
Yeah. Sure. And I usually like enjoy movies. Like I tend not to. I try to find the good in movies, too. and I can find it here. I don't think it's like boring. I thought it was enjoyable-ish, esque.
Yeah, I've seen some outlets giving this like a 3 or 4, and I think that's unfair. I really do. It's a better movie than that. Just go watch some of the other Phase 5 stuff and tell me that this is a 4.
Yeah, I'm not going to like rewatch this anytime soon. Like some of the others. And it's not one that I'd be excited to rewatch either, but it's worth watching once. The one issue I have with the movie as a whole is like Samuel Stearns' character and just the whole math bit. Like when you're playing with these probabilities and it's only like 70% and you like add those up, then you don't know that it's going to happen because 70% times 70, like the math isn't math like that. People don't understand probabilities, and it bugged me. It's hard to like
that. You're a math major though, so that's, you know, I did laugh when I saw it happen because I knew you were gonna have a thing with that. I just did. I
just thought they could have like not said the actual probabilities and had it been like, I don't mind the like, I see all these things and it's very likely they're going to do that. So don't stick a number on it.
Right.
And don't.
But sticking a number on it makes you sound smarter.
Well, but then the whole thing hinges on that thing going right when it's going to fail 1 out of every 4 times. If it's 75%.
Like, do you remember Casino Royale? Like early in the movie when you meet Le Chiffre for the second time on the boat when they're playing poker with some friend or something. And he's like, I have blah, blah, blah. And you have a like 17 point something % chance of hitting a straight. And that right away showed to the audience, like, this dude knows his shit, like right away, you know? I think that's what they're going for. Now, that doesn't mean the math has to add up, Steven, because nobody knows if it fucking does except for you. But
I know. But I just think like, if you're going to sell this super intelligent guy, and I like it's, I feel like they were close to it. That's the problem.
You know how you sell him? You make him like look like he has a brain outside his head.
That's funny. That was a heavy-handed thing. His head literally looked like a brain.
Yeah.
Like that's like whatever.
Yeah. I feel like we'd be remiss before we leave here if we don't bring up the terrible, sad irony in an MCU movie. The first time ever a black man is portrayed Captain America in a movie where also a Latino gets a really prominent role in the same week that Disney rolled back its DEI initiatives.
I didn't even see that.
So, I mean, I wonder if this film will eventually have the whole Disney disclaimer of like, hey, this film is a product of its time and Disney doesn't stand for blah, blah, blah. Like, Disney, get your head out of your ass and be better. Like,
yeah,
that's all. So, because when you cave this easy, it just makes it look like none of the stuff before was genuine either. And maybe it wasn't. So, last thoughts on Captain America. I liked it overall, but I don't love it, and I don't know that it's like instant rewatch.
That's exactly where I'm at. It's fine. We can continue. Well, it doesn't turn me off the MCU, but they're getting close. Like they need a couple smash hits. Because otherwise, I'm going into the next Avengers movie really not caring.
I have a feeling Thunderbolts is going to be a lot of fun.
I hope so, and I hope Fantastic Four is. That's actually the one I'm the most excited for, but also could be very, very nervous because there's only 2 movies until the next Avengers movie.
Is that it? There's just those 2?
Well, at least announced, unless they stick one in, because Fantastic Four is July. Thunderbolts is May, and then Avengers is May 2026.
Okay. There might be another one in between. I wouldn't be surprised. But I can see Fantastic Four not getting reviewed all that great, if for no other reason than James Gunn's Superman comes out 2 weeks before it, and there's going to be a lot of comparisons back and forth. And I just have a feeling Superman's going to be very good. Yeah. So I don't know. And ensemble movies like Fantastic Four, if they're not an Avengers movie, it's really hit or miss. Hopefully it's a hit. So, all right. I think that's going to do it for us for Captain America Brave New World. Check out too, we're actually record a review of The Gorge basically right now. So check that out as well. And remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and come see us on StrangeAwesomeGames.com. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye.